Now the ground trembled beneath Mathieu's feet, and he could hear a rumble from down below as the train pulled into the station. Moments later the passengers appeared, climbing up the staircase to the boulevard. They were still wearing winter clothes because it was cold in the city, apartments and offices barely heated for want of coal. As the crowd emerged, one woman caught his eye. She was lovely to look at, the face of a fallen angel and dressed in the latest Paris fashion. She wore ski pants, warmer than a skirt, a ski jacket and boots. She was lucky to have the boots. Some passengers wore clogs, wood-soled shoes, as there was no leather to be had for repair. To Mathieu, the passengers looked tired and worn. They might well have looked like that at the end of a working day before the war, but for Mathieu the weariness was different, deeper. Lately one heard the expression, "Je suis là." It meant, I am tired of the way I have to live my life. And this was what Mathieu saw in their faces, in the way they walked. But then he would think that. He cared for the people of Paris as though he were a guardian. The woman in the ski jacket returned his look. A glance, nothing flirtatious, rueful perhaps. In other times than these. Ah, at last, here was Lisette. 17 years old, a lycée student. She appeared not to notice him, but as she walked past the doorway she said, her voice low and confidential, "They have crossed the border. They're in Spain." 12th of March. In Senlis, 30 miles north of Paris, RAF Sergeant Arthur Gillen was hiding in the cellar of a barber shop. At 6:30 in the evening, Mathieu found him sitting on a blanket, as much of a bed as he had, and whittling a block of wood with a clasp knife. Looking up at Mathieu, he said, "Are you the man taking me to Paris?" Mathieu spoke good English, but Gillen with a heavy Manchester accent was hard to understand. "Yes, that's me," Mathieu said, and offered Gillen a cigarette. The RAF man was very grateful. Mathieu, lighting it for him, said, "We have a few minutes to make our train, Arthur, so we'd better be going." The barber, shaving a customer, gestured to Mathieu as they left the shop. It was a chilly twilight in northern France with a lead-coloured sky and a mean little wind, so the two walked quickly, heads down, as they made their way to the railway station. Gillen was young, surely not yet 20, and looked to Mathieu like a worker, most likely a worker in the Manchester fabric mills. He was small and thin, with something of the factory gnome about him. He just needed a stub of cigarette stuck to his lip and a worker's cap. He wore a soiled grey overcoat and was, Mathieu saw, walking with a limp. "Are you hurt, Arthur?" Mathieu said. "Not much. Sprained an ankle when my parachute came down, but I'll be fine. I just want to go home." "Well, we'll try and get you there." With luck, he would get there. And then, after a brief furlough, he'd go back to the war, and that was very much the point of Mathieu's work in the resistance. It would have been nice to think that Mathieu's efforts were inspired by humane instincts, but Europe was not so humane that year. Sergeant Gillen was trained and experienced in a demanding job, wireless operator on a Wellington bomber, and was, in fact, a weapon. And Britain needed any weapon, especially pilots, but aircrew were almost as valuable. It could get its hands on because it was losing the war. When the railway station came into view, Mathieu said, "No more talking, Arthur. We don't want anybody to hear you speaking English." The station platform passport control was, as usual, perfunctory. Local police glanced at the passengers' identity documents and waved them on towards the waiting train. There were fewer trains now. French coal was used to make German homes cosy and snug. And they were all overcrowded, the compartments filled, the aisles packed with cold, tired travellers, shifting from one foot to the other. With the train crawling at this pace, they would never get home. Then, 20 miles from Paris,